Hey everybody, I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk about good old-fashioned common damn sense. Why it has left our society, our civilization, and is it possible to bring it back? All right. Now, as we look around at the modern day and age with the internet and all this social media and stuff, we just see common sense of evaporating at a rapid rate, if it's even still around at all, in society as a whole. I know some of us still practice common sense on a regular basis, but when you look at society as a whole, common sense is just a vanishing trait, or completely non-existent in some places. Now, when you think about it, a lot of this has to do with just brainwashing, right? We've just been brainwashed as a society, as a civilization, Western civilization. We tend to think about things as we've been programmed to think about them. All right, our mental health and psychology and all this stuff and consumerism and all, we think about these things as we're programmed to think about them. Now, if you use common sense about this stuff, most of the time you'll realize that these companies, these big corporations, they have an agenda. Most of the time, these companies are making money. They're not actually trying to help us. Okay, they don't want what's best for you. They want your money. Now, if you go to that root, the root of that understanding, then a lot of common sense will stem from that, right? It'll just organically grow out of that understanding. I think that's a lot of it, honestly. Because we've been programmed to be basically consumers and to not think for ourselves anymore. All these institutions like the medical and the educational institutions and these different things, they're brainwashing and programming society to be robots. I mean, it's just obvious. And robots do not need common sense. I mean, if you think about it, common sense in a robot is an undesirable trait, right? You just want it to do what it's told to do and do it efficiently and nothing else. You don't want your robot, using common sense and saying, hey, and arguing with you and stuff. Hey, maybe we shouldn't do that. Or whatever. If you tell it to chop down a tree, well, this tree is alive. You don't want him bringing up shit like that. Maybe we shouldn't. No, just chop the damn tree down. It's in my way. So you don't want that kind of stuff, that kind of behavior in a tool, in a robot like that. And governments, institutions, the powers that be don't want that kind of behavior in the population. They don't want people with common sense thinking about things. You don't want an entire population using common sense and applying that to war. Should we engage in this war or these wars? Should we? You don't want a population thinking that way. I mean, you just, you want to be able to go over and fire some people up over there in another country. You don't want your population asking questions about that and maybe not electing you next term because you did some shit that they didn't agree with. You don't want a population like that. You don't want a population that sits there and thinks about their next purchase. Hey, maybe I don't need that new phone. My phone's still working great. It's just common sense tells me not to get another one, not to waste money on another phone when I've got one here that's working perfectly fine, does everything I ask of it. Maybe that thing whatever it is that the higher ups are telling me that I need, maybe, just maybe, I don't need it, right? Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't need that war to be safe. Maybe I don't need that car to be successful. Maybe I don't need that phone to be, to be hip and cool. So these kind of things. You don't want people asking these kind of questions or thinking these kind of things. So I believe that common sense is being rooted out of our civilization. It's being actively programmed out of us. I don't think it's just that the younger people are stupid. I believe that the younger people are being programmed more efficiently than we were. That's all. Because just like any other organism or structure on the planet, institutions and companies, corporations, they learn, okay? And they use psychology, and they learn from their mistakes, and they're perfecting their practices. That, so if they want to sell more of a certain product, then they know how to do it better now. They program that out of you. They manipulate you with commercials and influencers and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? So we're just being programmed to not trust our intuition anymore. Our damn just wholesome common sense. And that's why older people have more common sense. Just they weren't indoctrinated when they were younger as much, as successfully, as skillfully as the young people are now. So I honestly tend to believe that the lack of common sense is really being deliberately, programmed out of us. And I don't really think that's a big long stretch of the imagination. I really don't. I think that these big corporations and these governments and these institutions, who are all controlled by, the central bank, because if you really think about it and use common sense, you follow the money. That's it. That's basically the sum total agenda of all of it, because money is control. Money is literally our time. I have to spend my time to get that money in some way, shape, or form. I have to spend my time to get that money. So money is basically, our lives. And we trade away our lives for this currency. And so they're getting us to trade our lives for X phone or X, car, or whatever the variable you want to place there for X. And I really don't think that every corporation, I think that's just a natural progression of corporate law and corporate mentality and all that. Most of these companies didn't start out that way. They started out as small companies, and they were actually trying to help people or do a good thing or something. But then it evolves into something sinister and monstrous. Once they get to a certain level, it's about manipulation, psychology, and the bottom line. Okay, and they have to use psychology and manipulation to increase their bottom line a lot of times. And just think about it: when you start a store, and you think you get a good idea about your inventory management and stuff, and you think, well, I'll give people a place where they can come and do all their shopping in one spot. They can buy clothes, electronics, food, all that stuff all in the same spot. That'll make people's lives so much better, so much easier. It'll save them gas, and that sounds great. And then, 4 or 5 decades later, we've got Walmart forcing companies to send their manufacturing overseas to China and, basically putting our economy in a stranglehold. And that's just one example, where a company started out with good intentions and then grew into this shitty, manipulative monster. It's just a money creating machine. That's all it is. It's no longer for the customer, or people are basically programmed to go to McDonald's now. They're programmed to go to Walmart. They're programmed, that's just where they go. Their parents went there. They grew up going there. That's just where they go. That kind of stuff is why, the common sense is gone. You don't question this stuff anymore. And that's where a lot of the common sense comes into play, whether you realize it or not, is questioning things. If you don't question things, then the common sense is lacking. Okay? If you don't question why. Why am I going to Walmart? Is it because that's the best place for me to go? Or is it just because that's how I'm programmed to shop? Am I going to McDonald's because it's healthy and, inexpensive and it's just the best idea for me and my family? Or am I just going to McDonald's because that's where I've always gone? That's where my parents took me, and that's where the programming is telling me to go, the commercials and the psychology and all that stuff, where I'm programmed to go. Or, am I buying this phone? Why am I buying this phone? Do I really need it? These questions are what at the root of common sense, What's it gonna feel like if I put my foot in this boot that's full of piss? Or, I'm programmed to just put my foot in there. But common sense will tell you to pour the piss out of the boot. That's the kind of thing. It all boils down to questioning. And that's why I made that video about question the science, or trust the science. And then ask questions in that video. And surprisingly enough, I was actually surprised. I shouldn't have been, but that video got a lot of downvotes. Yeah, it got a lot of downvotes because I dared bring up the question that maybe scientists are fallible. Just maybe. Maybe they're just human beings like the rest of us. Maybe they're greedy and manipulative and lust for advancement. Just maybe they might do that, like every other human being. But that a lot of people, I guess, found that idea preposterous and ridiculous. And the idea that I would ask that question, are scientists just human beings? And maybe science at large should be questioned. Maybe that is the nature of science, to question science. That's how you do science. That really struck a bad chord with a lot of people, I guess. So, which is okay, but if you're one of those people that think that we should just trust the science no matter what, maybe you should at least consider asking questions. Maybe you should consider thinking about these things a little bit, because honestly, it's not bad. It's not bad to ask questions. To completely disregard the science, any science, without asking questions is as ridiculous as just completely trusting it without asking questions. Okay? There's a middle ground there that's called common sense, where we ask questions and we search for the truth, and we do things that are in our best interest, not just according to our programming. And I think that if more people start doing that, start asking questions and not just following their programming, not just reacting like robots, I think the world would be a damn better place, to be honest. Everybody should just learn how to practice a little common sense. But honestly, as a whole, as a civilization, as a society, I'm not very optimistic for that. I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that we'll keep continuing down this road until, we're all, well, not us particularly, individuals, but as a society, society will be just full of mindless zombies, basically, with computer chips in their heads and scrolling the internet constantly and watching YouTube videos without, you won't even need a device. You just close your eyes and watch YouTube videos. You know what I mean? It's going to be stupid, but whatever. But that common sense is the antidote to that. Common sense is what could save civilization from that. But I just don't think that'll happen. But I can always have hope. I can always hope that one day people will wake up and start using common sense again. I don't think that's a completely ridiculous thing to hope for. And I'll leave you there with that. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming a member, I'll leave that link down in the description, or you can head over to the channel page and become a member that way. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can do so by clicking on that super thanks button down there. Or you can head over to Buy Me a Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. I'll leave that link down in the description, and I appreciate those of you who do that. Thank you very much. If you're interested in Gen X gear, we got some pretty cool stuff over there at Redbubble. Gen X Thinks and Gen X branded stuff. T-shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, bath mats. Just all kinds of cool stuff over there. But I'll leave that link down in the description too for any of you who are interested. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. That helps out a hell of a lot, so thank you very much to those of you who do that. I sincerely appreciate it. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, please put those down in the comments, or you can email us, and the email is genxthinks@gmail.com. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.